Thank you for joining us for this episode of The State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays talking all things leadership, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. And today we're going to be talking about your management or leadership style. And what is it? How can you discover what it is? And we're going to help you with that. And we're going to reveal, according to the quiz that we are sharing with you, it's a fun thing to do. We are going to share with you our management leadership styles, and we're going to try to guess each other's based on what we know, even because we haven't shared the results from each other. So I'm thinking this should be fun. I'm thinking we should know the answer already. And I'm curious to know if, when we get to it, if you were surprised with what it came up with. Because I have, every quiz or assessment, right, is a little different. And the outcomes are a little different. So they are, I would say they're pretty consistent, but there are some ways that things can come across. There's an assessment that I use for one of the trainings, and it really only uses 3 categories. This particular one has 4. I've seen assessments that have as many as 7 or 8, right? So all over the place. But the bottom line, it will give you an idea of, I would say, your preference, right? Rather than something that you are steeped in or cemented in. And it's a tool. It gives you information, and you can make all the changes that you want if you don't like the answer that you get. So, Robert, some opening thoughts.
I thought this was very interesting. I have a lot of things I want to add to what we reveal, but I thought it was interesting. I think that when we start talking about leadership or management styles, we tend to think of that one style is better than another style. And I have some thoughts about that, and I'll chime in when we start discussing this fun quiz.
Okay, you know what? I wanted to. This isn't going to work. I was going to drop something the in the comments, but I think the way it's going to come across is not very useful.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do that. It is in the post that comes with the announcement for this episode. And if before we're done, I can figure out a way to share this and make it useful, maybe I'll get a bit.ly link as one of these times when you're talking. I will not pay attention to you. I'll get a bit.ly link, at least make it easier for people to access. Otherwise, get it from the original post. So here, so a point that you just made is really important, right? Along with, ultimately, this is just information, right? You don't, it's changeable, it's flexible. You are able to ultimately lead the way that you choose to lead. And I think what the way you can use assessments in general is to get an idea sort of where you are. And then whatever the results are that come from that, you can say, is this a style that I want to lead with? Is this the way I want to be known? Am I getting the results that I want? Am I expending the energy that I expend in a way that allows me to get basically the results that I want, right? And if the answers to those don't come back the way that you want, taking the time to say, okay, this is how I sort of show up naturally, or the way I'm showing up currently.
Mhm.
I want to make some changes. And then taking the time to do that, right? Again, it's just information, it's just feedback.
Well, it's really funny because as I was taking this yesterday, I did it yesterday. I read the article. I did it yesterday. I was going through all the questions and I was saying to myself, well, it said, do you totally disagree, or, do you agree, or whatever? And I was like, well, sometimes this type of style is necessary. Sometimes it's necessary to do that. And I think that's because you and I have had a lot of training in different leadership styles.
Yes.
And particularly, I just finished creating a workshop, designing a workshop on situational leadership. And there are times in situational leadership where you really need to be directed, where you really need to, for lack of a better word, micromanage somebody. I think the issue, and there are times in situational leadership where you do nothing, right? Because you know that person has the competence and they're in the commitment to do the job. Now, I think it becomes a problem when you only have one style of leadership and you lean on that style of leadership, even if it is not effective. I know of a leader, and we don't like to use names on the show unless we're speaking favorably of that person. So I will not use this person's name. That had one type of leadership style, was micromanaging, always in someone's face, love to push the envelope, make people cry, and would be like, oh, I don't understand why you're being so sensitive about this. I'm just doing this because I know I can get the best out of you. Spoiler alert, you're not going to get the best out of people if you make them cry. So it wasn't working for this leader. And it ended up getting this leader terminated from the organization because that style, which was the only style that they used, it was not received well. There were maybe, I want to say, one person. No, I don't want to even say one person that appreciated it. No one appreciated that leader's leadership style. So it can backfire. That was clearly an opportunity for this person to switch gears and try something different. The issue is that our egos get in the way, and we have to look at our deficiencies, and it causes a problem.
So a couple of things. One is over analyzing the assessment. I found myself doing a little bit of that, right? It's like, yeah, it's not always that I totally disagree or totally agree. And is it in the middle? Sometimes this, sometimes that. And you're absolutely right. Being flexible as a leader is probably your greatest superpower, right? Not only situation to situation, but team member to team member, project to project, right? And sometimes it's all of those things at the same time. And so the way that you interact with one person on your team, even as you're working on one project or in one situation or scenario, may be different than how you need to interact with someone else. And recognizing that is hugely important. So again, I think the assessments in general are about helping with some self-awareness about how you are showing up, currently showing up, how you've shown up in the past, and giving you some insight so that if things are not working, if you're not being effective in your leadership, that you can make some changes. And the good news is that you have the power and the ability to make some changes, right? Getting a coach, reading some books, one of Robert's favorite things, right? Watching some videos, listening and watching The State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. So, but here's another thing that came to me, that this isn't, and I've said this a number of times. I did a whole speech on this. I've written about this. Leadership is not about you, right? So this is not about you saying, oh, this is the kind of leader I am, and therefore everybody else deal with it. Right? Your being a leader is about your ability to lift up, empower others. So the style, ultimately, if you're going to get the kinds of results that you want, if the results that you want are something other than I get to tell people what to do, they do it, and all is right with the world, right? If you want something other than that, then your leadership, it has to work for the people that you're leading, which means knowing who they are, what styles work best for them, and then making some adaptations in situations and in the various relationships in order to get the best of them. So it's the same thing with communication styles and work styles, right? That once you have the information of how the various people on your team communicate, you are better able to communicate. You don't tell them, well, this is how I communicate. This is the only way I'm going to communicate. And if you don't like it, we won't interact. It's not feasible. It's not workable. And so you have to really stop and think about it. Are you getting the results from beyond getting the work done? Are you getting the results that you want? Which means you need to know what the results are that you want, right? You need to spend some time thinking about, yes, I want the work to be done, but I don't want to have to micromanage you, right? So in order for me to not to have to micromanage you, I need to understand what it's going to take to motivate you to do the work, to empower you to do the work, to give you the power and authority that you need in order to do the work. And I can't do that if I am stuck in one particular style or thinking that this is the only way that it can be. So I have to know the personalities, the communication style, the work style, the leadership styles, and what leadership styles work for each member of the team, and then make some adjustments here and there. And the reason that leaders that we don't have more effective leaders and a whole world full of great leaders is because that takes time. It takes energy, right? It takes effort, being proactive rather than reactive and saying, not thinking about it at all, or saying, I will deal with this when it's time to discipline someone, right? Which isn't leadership.
No, I think that there's so many things working against people. I said the first one was ego. Your ego will work against you if you can't look at things and say, hey, this is not working. I need to shift something. The other thing is people have default tendencies that they fall back on when things get tough. I like to think that each person has their own distinct, our opinion on the show is everyone's a leader, right? So everyone has their own distinct leadership style. It's like, and it shows up when you're working with other people, when you have a team, when you're running your business. If you're an avid reader and you like a particular author, you're going to read it. You can read a few lines and go, oh, this is Stephen King, right? Or this is Toni Morrison, or this is whomever. You get attuned to that person's style. And I think that what ends up happening, people like to operate in a way that's comfortable with them, because changing your style requires that you embrace some discomfort. We don't like to be uncomfortable. So people tend to fall back on what works. And like I said, the danger is that when your ego gets involved, you'll fall back on that because maybe it worked in the past. And you will be blind to see how it's not working for you. And that can cause you some big problems. So the key, like you said, is to be flexible, is to look for ways, look at the situation, look at your team member, look at the circumstance and say, okay, I'm approaching this with my default leadership style. It is not working. What else could I do? You can say, oh, I heard something on a podcast. they said you should try this. Somebody, Robert or Whitney mentioned a book that I want to check out and start looking at. Just like you say, there are many ways to do that, but we just get so focused on our comfort and fear, because when you become uncomfortable, you start to worry, like, is this going to work? I'm not good at this. I don't have any success using this brand new style. So is it going to work for me? And what if it doesn't work? So you start to spin out. What if it doesn't work? They're not going to respect me. I'm not going to look like I know what I'm doing. So it causes a lot of issues. So with that, I'm really curious to see. I have an idea about how you showed up in this quiz, and my results were a little weird. So, and I'm going to give that.
So before we get to that,
Uh-huh.
would you like to explain the 4 categories of this particular quiz? Right, there are 4 styles that are laid out here, and again, depending on the assessment that you take, and there are tons. And Robert does one, and he should talk about that. We'll talk about the tool that you use and how people might get in touch with you if they wanted an assessment and learn something about themselves in another way. But from this particular quiz, there were 4 styles: the top dog, the collaborator, the chillaxer, and then the visionary. And so you want to explain what those are before we divulge?
Sure. I'm going to just do it. I'm going to paraphrase them. So the top dog are really managers that like to give lots of direction. They're directive, autocratic leaders who those are your micromanagers. We'll put them in that category. They're also pace setters. So they know how they want something done, and they do not like deviation. So they're very directive. That was the MS1, Management Style 1, MS1. MS2 is the collaborator. These are the people that get ideas from their team. They want the team to really contribute to the leadership and the movement, the direction of the team. So they are sharing leadership with people. That's that collaborative style of leadership. Then you have MS3, which is the chillaxer. God, I really hated that name. I really wish the author chose some. I hate that word, chillax. But anyway,
you even have laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire. Those are your laissez-faire leaders. Those are the ones that do nothing. Their hands. Laissez-faire literally means let do. You let your people do whatever they want. Your hands are off the wheel, and you just do your own thing, and your people do their own thing. And there are, like I said, there are, I didn't say this, but there are pluses and minuses to each different management style or leadership style. And then MS4, Management Style 4, is the visionary. This is the type of leader that creates a very vivid vision and helps move the team according or in the direction that they need to go in order to achieve that vision. So that's just a paraphrase of those 4 styles. And I'm going to start by saying that I think that you are, according to this, the visionary leader.
Ding, 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 ding. So here's the thing. Very interesting. Yes, visionary, but I had a tie.
Yes, me too.
Between the visionary and the chillaxer. Laissez-faire. Is that what? Did you have a tie with that too? I'm going to say you and a collaborator.
Correct. Visionary and collaborator. Not
visionary
chillaxer.
Collaborator.
You know my personality. I don't chillax for nothing. So there's no chillaxing here. I have people. My friends will tell me, stop reading all those books. You need to just relax and don't worry. So I'm not a chillaxer.
No, I'm a good chillax. I'm good at chilling. I'm good at chilling, and I'm good at relaxing. And then collaborator was like right on the heels. Those two were tied, the MS3 and the MS4. and right on the heels was the collaborator. And I think that fairly sums up. And the micromanager was a distant, like almost not even on the scale. So far behind in terms of the scoring. So I would agree that this was pretty accurate. I do see myself and show up as a visionary, someone, and in our relationship, right? In the work that we do, that it's very much I'm sort of the one that throws out these big picture ideas and not always getting them done, but that's sort of what I do. Ideas come easily to
Relaxing
me.
takes over, right?
And then and that's why, as part of a team, you need to have people that bring different skill sets. And as a collaborator, you're the one who takes things and sort of shapes them so that we can actually move them forward, right? So it takes a village, is how I would say that. And but the collaborator piece was like right there. And but I also see how the laissez-faire part of me shows up. And what I tend to think is, if I've communicated a vision, we're in agreement, you buy in, that um, I want to just leave you to do the work, right? I don't, if you need me, I'm here. I'm absolutely here. We'll collaborate, we'll help, provide all the tools, resources, everything you need. But I want to leave you to do what it is that you do best. And I think for me, a lot of that in sort of thinking about this self-awareness is I want to be left alone, right? And so a part of how I want to be led shows up in how I lead, if that makes sense. So I don't want someone over me telling me what to do, micromanaging my thoughts and my actions. And so that expresses itself in how I lead, starting with, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. Are we all on board? I got you. Resources, tools, strategies, whatever. Let's collaborate. Let's figure this out. And then leaving each person to do their, because once you know your role, I feel like I don't need to be there to make sure that you get it. And as long as progress is happening, right, I don't need to. Which goes back to the point that you made earlier. There's no right or wrong. None of these are right or wrong. And depending on the situation, you draw from that aspect that is going to move the project or your people forward. And so, are there times when I'm a top dog, when I'm like right there and asking questions? Yes, far and few between, because I think the other part for me is taking my visionary sort of laissez-faire aspect and looking for people for whom that works, right? And that's one of the pieces about hiring that sometimes gets lost. People, and we've done a program on effective hiring, and people are so focused on the skill set, and do they have the skills, and have they done this work in the past, rather than looking for, are the members of this team going to gel and work together based on leadership styles, work styles, communication styles, that we're going to be able to mesh and work together. I would not hire someone who needed to be micromanaged. It would be disaster up front, because I would feel resentful for having to do that. They would probably be resentful for me not doing that, and it wouldn't work. Just like me working for a micromanager wouldn't work.
And I think there's a time to do that. You know that one of the things that I've studied extensively is transformational leadership and full range leadership model. And that in full range leadership model, we call that management by exception A, active. That means that you're always involved, you're overseeing what your people are doing, because you are in the mix. And it says that leadership theory really says that leadership style is effective only when the house is on fire. If the house is on fire and things need to be done a particular way with no deviation, that's the key. With that's when you use that style. The problem with that style is that people tend to think, because people will respond to that, because they use the power distance. So your title, because you have a title and you can fire somebody, people will generally respond to that, except maybe the newer generation. They want to be treated with respect. They don't like that, I'm going to respect you just because you've been working here 15 minutes before I got here, or you're in their minds, or you've been here forever, whatever, and you think that because of that you have this title and therefore you can treat me terribly. They're not going to respond to that. So
Right.
you need to have different ways of doing it. The laissez-faire or chillaxer style, that works when people are highly competent and you don't need to be watching over them. Just let them do their thing, and maybe have a check-in every once in a while, to see how they're doing. The visionary style works very well when you have a new strategy you have to put in place, and there's a new vision, you have a new mission, we're moving in a certain direction that's different from the direction you're in now. That's a great time to use that particular style. It will backfire if there's no reason to have a new vision, and you're just or you're throwing out new visions every other week. People will get confused, and there are some leaders that do that. I worked with somebody where it seemed like every week after they read an article, that here's what we're going to do, and then okay, we get ready to do that, and then they read another great article. Scratch that. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. People like to have focus, and so when you start to do that,
certainty.
Certainty. It starts to mess with people's certainty and focus. And then the collaborator, that's really good when you have a team that you've taken the time to build up that team, so that team knows each other, they are comfortable with each other, they like each other. They don't have to love each other, but they can get along to the point where they can buy into the direction the organization is going. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses, kind of like a basketball team. We use that a lot on this the show. Then that's a great time to do that. And there's a time I tend to look at it like this. It's said that I am a collaborator and also a visionary. I like to think that a collaborator, that's my primary leadership style, and visionary is my secondary leadership style. It's the one I fall back on when I need to, move into a new direction. And I think that if you can have that, if you can tap into that, having a primary style and something that you can fall back on, you'll be a lot more successful than if you keep trying to force, square pegs into round holes.
Absolutely. It's something that the author, Scott Greenberg, I believe, and Scott has a book, just for the record. We've the article that's linked in the post is an excerpt, along with the quiz, is an excerpt from his book, which the title of which escapes, something about shifting. About shifting. It escapes me at the moment. It will come back to me. But one of the things that he was saying about collaborators, and we've talked about this as it relates to teams and groups, right? And there's a distinction between groups and teams, is that collaborators, right? There has to be a recognition that everything doesn't have to be collaborative, right? Everything doesn't require a group. And just, this is not about you or picking on you or anything, because this is so high on my list as well, or on my style as well, is that that looking for a group of people or looking to collaborate where collaboration is really not a thing doesn't serve you, right? And so again, being adaptable, flexible, understanding what your primary style is, understanding that you can flex and you should flex, and when a particular style is needed or some combination of the styles is needed, right, ultimately will be helpful for you. So it could be that a couple of different things are needed at the same time. Not micromanaging and laissez-faire. They don't go together. But but some combination of the other three, right? The with the other two could be the mix that you're looking for. If you try to be a micromanager and laissez-faire with the same person, the same group of people, you're going to have it. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, right. But and then on the other hand, right, to piggyback off of what you're saying, there might be a time when you are a laissez-faire leader, but you're introducing something that the team has never seen before, but you are an expert in that. Then you can micromanage that because only you know. But most of the time, like you're saying, it's gonna just drive people crazy because you're flip-flopping, you're moving from breathing down my neck 1 second to I can't find you the next when I need help. From calling me every 30 seconds to why are you bothering me. It's just too much confusion, and it's not, like we said, people like that consistency. And so knowing what your primary style is, knowing how people generally see you, that's going to be really, really helpful to you. And then having something that you can use as a backup is going to be great as well.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else about this article or the quiz? The results, your results.
No, I mean, I was
Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised. I saw what this person, it's very interesting that the past couple of months I've been really focusing on developing this situational leadership workshop. And so as I was doing that, I was like, oh, this person studied situational leadership because there's a lot of really clear similarities there. There are 4 leadership styles, there are 4 development styles. So, and there's the directive style, and then there's the hands-off style. So I was like, okay, I see what this person is doing there. And because of that, like I said, as I was doing it, I was like, well, it may be. If you would have asked me this, I don't know, 10 years ago, I would have been like, micromanaging is terrible. But there's a time and place for that. Like I said, the house is on fire. You work in a really highly dangerous environment, nuclear regulatory, or air traffic controllers, where where seconds and inches really mean something. Then it makes sense to use that type of style. But most of us, we make a mistake. Planes aren't going to fall from the sky,
right,
and we're not going to cause a meltdown. But there are some leaders that act like that. So I'll just leave it at that. So that was the only thing that I was like, well, and then he says, well, none of these, he didn't look at it like, okay, if you're a top dog, then you're the devil.
Right.
He didn't do that. So I thought that was very very helpful to just bring to light the management style without levying judgment on people.
Absolutely, and I think that point cannot be reiterated enough. There is no right or wrong. It is very much dependent on what is called for, right? And in addition to situations, just sort of on the micromanager piece, there are some people who need that for whatever reason. And so it's important, again, going to when you are hiring people, when you are training people, when you are taking over a team, being clear about who's on your team and what they need, right, is going to be important. And so if you have someone who needs more hand holding, right, for whatever reason, maybe it's temporary, something they're going through, something, maybe that's just the way they are, then recognizing what the members of your team need is going to go a long way. So in addition, so this is how we get to emotional intelligence, right? Having self-awareness, awareness of others, taking the time to understand who's on your team, what they need, so that you can manage your emotions and help them manage their emotions in your interactions. And so if you are have someone on your team who would thrive more with a micromanager, and you're not that person, and for whatever reason they're not performing, they're acting out behaviors, helping them understand while you're understanding what it is that they need will go a long way towards turning that around. And often, or the other way around, right? You're a micromanager and they don't want or need that. The response, the behaviors, the pushback that you get from that, the emotions that are attached to that probably need some recognition in management. And so understanding all these pieces about your style, work style, communication style, leadership style, that of your team members, what people need will serve you in the long run to be able to adapt and flex so that you can provide, right? So when people are saying that your job as a leader is to support, uplift, empower, this is what we're talking about, right? And you can't do that if you don't know who's on your team.
Yeah, getting to know the players on your team is really important, and it really can't be overstated. You got to get to know people. You got to know what people's strengths and weaknesses are. I'm so grateful that you're talking about emotional intelligence in here, and self-awareness in particular, because we talk about that a lot on the show. And one of the things that I've been doing some work on myself when it comes to certain things, when I feel myself recoiling at something, being angry or being anxious about something, or fearful of something, stressed about something, myself, like a lot of people, I think the first thing I want to get that out of my head, right? Because I'm not a stressed out kind of person. I like to present myself, hopefully very confident, but there are times when my confidence gets shaken, or I have, I'm thinking about something and I'm worried about something, and I like to examine that. I'm starting to really examine that instead of like just shunting it off and go. But I noticed something very interesting. I have a very close friend. Whenever we talk about something that they're not familiar with, the conversation doesn't want to talk about it, right? Because the self-image is that of a very successful, intelligent person, and this person is successful and intelligent, but does not like to look at or talk about things or even approach subjects that are unfamiliar. And so I was just, it's just a very interesting thing. And so it's a quality that I have that I've been trying to really work with, and because it affects your leadership style.
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at something, or when I encounter a situation where my typical leadership style is not working, I want to be able to move into something that's going to work. But if I have anxiety about that, or I feel not as confident about that, or I'm angry because my style should be working and it isn't, it's not going to get me to where I need to go. So working with those things and working with that level of emotion, I think, is the first step into being able to switch styles, because you have to think about and notice what's going on inside your body, what emotions are popping up for you, and why. why do you feel insecure about this? Or why are you angry about this? Why are you fearful about this? And usually when we have a lot of these emotions, these negative, I hesitate to call them negative emotions, but the fear and anger and stuff like that, we tend to, just like I said, push them away and not examine them. So it's a way to work through those so that when they come up, you can listen to them and be like, what is it telling me? What is this emotion telling me? What is it saying to me about me? And so that's, I think, a really key component to self-awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, unless you've got anything else on this, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about the assessment that you do, the Energy Leadership Index, right? Mm-hmm. The ELI, the work that you do and how that can help managers, leaders understand more about themselves and make some shifts if they desire to.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Well, the ELI, or Energy Leadership Index assessment, is an attitudinal assessment. So it really focuses and hones in on how you think about certain situations. And because how you think about certain things really influences how you feel, and that influences the actions that you take. So it looks at those things and it brings them to light so that you're not, like I said before, only using your default tendency. And it looks at those situations where your default tendency is working against you. And then we can talk about how we can collaborate to come up with some new strategies so that you can be successful in several different many or several different situations. And I say several first because we want to start slow. We don't want to shift completely, but we want to start slow and then start adding to your repertoire. And it really starts with really paying attention to the thoughts that come up when these situations occur. And so it's a great assessment. I've been doing it for got to be like 11 or 12 years right now, and I have some great data on it. And it's really an effective way to help move you in the direction that you want to go in terms of your leadership, self-leadership, and leadership with your team.
Awesome. And I'm glad you said that at the end, right? If you don't lead yourself well, it's going to have difficulty leading other people. One, they will see that it will test your authenticity. And people were like, well, you're not walking the talk, right? You're sort of not leading by example. And so self-leadership is huge. And again, with the simple leadership method, we believe it starts with self-awareness. The more you are aware about yourself, your tendencies, your preferences, right? How you show up in your energy, how you show up in your communication, your behaviors, etc. The more you are aware of that, if it's not working effective, getting the results that you want, right? To take a step back and ask some questions. Right? Be willing to be that person that will be a little bit uncomfortable saying, I thought I had all the answers. Apparently, I don't have all and it's okay. It's okay, right? Because in reality, none of us has all the answers. We may have lots of answers, but none of us has all the answers. And so being willing to be self-reflective, introspective, gain some awareness around yourself is the starting point to you being able to lead and manage yourself, manage your emotions, manage your behaviors, your thoughts, etc. And then, right, as people see you doing that, you're an example, particularly to help them have some self-awareness around themselves. And then lead yourself well. You be better, you lead better, lead yourself better, you can lead others better.
Absolutely. It's so important. And one of the things that I love about that assessment and the debrief that I do is that we really talk about what situations are you reacting to and what situations do you want to respond to. Choose how you want to move and maneuver and show up in different situations. And it's really, like you said, the key is really zeroing in on your self-awareness so that you're paying attention and you're not just on autopilot like many people are when they're leading other people or when they're doing their job or just through life. A lot of people are just on autopilot, waking up the same time every day, eating the same thing for breakfast, and not really thinking or seeing themselves how they are interacting. It's really important to do that, I think.
Absolutely. And I love this focus on choosing, right? That we have self-efficacy. We get to choose. We get to choose how we live our lives. We get to choose how we interact with people. And I'm going to own this. And I still hear people saying this. And I am someone who used to say this. I do not say this anymore. But that's who I am. And if you don't like it, right, sort of. And the bottom line is it's not just who you are. Right? You get to decide who you are. And so if you want to be that, right, it tends to be when someone is termed an a-hole or something pejorative, right? And it's like, well, that's just who I am. And if you don't like it, okay, so you're choosing to be this person or like that or not genuine or generous or kind, caring. So what you're telling me is that you're choosing that, right? Because you're not just anything, and you can choose to be something else any moment you decide. It may take time, it may take work, it may be uncomfortable doing so, but that it's not the sum total of who you are unless you decide that's how you want it to be.
I have friends that use that, say that quite often, and I sometimes come back with something that I heard Bruce D. Snyder say. He's the founder of IPEC. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Right? You can be that way if you want to, but you're miserable, which is why you have to say, well, that's just the way I am. If you don't like, well, how many times have you had to say that this month? It's been a lot. So when I say that to people sometimes, oh, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Right? Because you don't seem like you're happy. If you're happy, then fine, and go ahead and do that. I have a friend that likes to correct. He will correct the smallest of mistakes that anybody makes. And it causes some problems. And like, sometimes it's better to let that's not important, right? Let it go. If somebody wants to, and this is really funny, you're like, well, they were talking about crazy stuff. And I said, well, let me teach you a phrase that I use whenever somebody says crazy stuff to me. Oh, okay. That's all you gotta say.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Never say anything else.
Yes. Right. And so here's the thing with that, and I love that story. It starts with, again, self-awareness, but making a decision that you want the life that you want, right? You want the relationships that you want. To think about what those things are, and if how you are is getting you what you want, then fine. Yeah. And I think to your point, then you don't have to explain that that's just who you are. Right. And if you don't like it, you can go or whatever, right? If you are genuine in that, then you don't have to say those words.
Right.
You're saying those words for a reason, right? Which is trying to convince yourself that it's okay. And so it starts with taking ownership, responsibility for who you are, your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors, your feelings, all of that, right? Take ownership of it. And then you get to decide if it's going to be something else. And so again, it's about choosing, right? All of this is about choosing. And when you get to the place where you accept that you're in control, right? And of your life, and you may not have control of every thought that comes in, but you have control of every thought you hold on to, and you have control of every action that you take in response to what comes in. And when you take responsibility for that, everything will change, right? And you can start to make the kinds of decisions that really do serve you, because you're not on autopilot of this is who I am and therefore, right? And so hope that helps. And if you need more help with that, reach out to Robert. Schedule time for an ELI or
Absolutely.
a session with him. And if they wanted to do that, Robert, how would they go about doing that?
Thank you, Whitney. They can reach out to me at inspireme@roberthilliardcoaching.com, or just go to the website, roberthilliardcoaching.com, and look for that contact form, fill it out, let me know the goals you have, the challenges you're having, and we can set up a discovery call and we can talk about how I may be able to help you.
Absolutely. And likewise, if you'd like to connect with me, you can do so at shiftingintooaction.now.site. Shiftingintooaction.now.site. Complete the form there, and I can schedule time with you for a strategy session, and there are a couple of gifts there, ebooks that may be relevant to something that you're going through. Go ahead, download those, and let's connect and see if we can't get you moving by choice and intentionality in the direction that you want to go. So with that, thank you for joining us for this episode of the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. We are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. And until next time, take care.
Bye now.